And we are now live on YouTube.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It is 6:30 and on November 19th, 2020. I had to think about the date, but we're starting our Police Accountability Board meeting for this week. And I guess we can start with welcoming everyone and then taking a look at the minutes. And we actually have two separate meetings to approve, which is the 5th and the 12th, I believe. Is that correct?
That's correct. Let me put up the minutes for the 5th.
Thank you.
Here they are.
Okay. Can I get, oh wait, do we, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So can I get somebody to make a motion to approve the minutes, please? Okay.
I so move.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. So all in favor of approving the minutes for November 5th, 2020? Okay.
Aye.
I think I see it.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Minutes are approved.
Here are the minutes for the 12th, our last meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Make sure everybody's taking a look at those. Okay. Unless there are any objections or if anybody still wants to peruse, can I get a motion to approve the minutes for November 12th, 2020, please?
I make a motion.
Okay.
Approve the minutes. Can you hear me okay?
I think, yeah. Hello. All right. Second, please.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes for November 12th? Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion approves for the minutes for November 12th. Thank you, Connor. All right, so then to move on with the agenda. Hold on a second. Okay. So I'm going to discuss committees and assignments. Okay. So a couple things have come up as far as we've kind of kicked this around for a little while, but I think it's we really need to get two things going, which is the rules committee, which I will explain, which I apologize in the email did not come clear. So I will make sure I explain the reason why we need a rules committee, and also education committee. I think those are the two most important things that we should be focusing on right now. And for the rules committee, it is because we are trying to set and establish rules that we need in order to function, and also setting up rules for something specific, which is anti-bias and recusal rules. And so I know that I approached some of you this week about it without much explanation, so I apologize. But I don't know, Connor, if you, does anybody need Connor to explain the recusal rules, or are we all set with that? Nothing? Okay.
I'd like to hear him explain it.
Okay.
Sure. So we need to have a set of rules to ensure that a number of our processes are free of bias. And so that not only can we ensure the processes are free of bias, but also the appearance of bias. And one tool to do that is to have clear rules that say what our expectations are as a board for participating in the disciplinary hearing process, and our norms as a board for doing rulemaking or any other kind of work we can do. So that's one step. And then the second step is to have those rules have recusal steps that anyone can take to set themselves off from a process, whether it's a disciplinary hearing or a rulemaking procedure or whatever, to ensure that any potential conflict is avoided. So what the rules will look like in detail will be up to staff working with, excuse me, I'm going to admit Danielle. It's going to be up to the rules committee working with staff, and then the board fully approving those rules. So I can't discuss the details until we all sit down and think about that. One way to do it is to kind of adopt some gold standard recusal rules and anti-bias rules from New York state courts and the federal judiciary, and then apply them in the context of this agency and this board.
Okay. So I think the idea was just to get a committee established so we can get started working, especially when it comes to making sure that some of our processes are kind of outlined so that we can have a easy, streamlined process about how we do things on a day-to-day basis. And so I know that a number of us there's only 8 of us, right? And so we're doing a bunch of different things at once, but, I think a rules committee would be helpful. So, I mean, I know there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6 of us. So I'm gonna talk to you 6 first.
Wasn't there already a group of people who said they were going to work on it?
Not on rules, because there were some additional questions that needed to be asked. And so that's why I'm approaching the 6 of you, because you're right in front of my face. So would you like to work on a said committee for the rules committee?
Is it mutually exclusive with the education committee? Like, is it a one or the other kind of thing?
So this is separate from, we have rules and education. I think education was what Dora was talking about as far as having people working on education. And I think you're a part of that committee, right? So we still have folks that will have to serve on the rules committee. And so if you were, I'm not sure. I think Danielle, I don't think you're on the education committee, correct? No, you are on it? Okay. Sorry about your audio.
Reverend,
I'm happy to switch over. If,
All right.
I think we already had 4 people on the education committee or something. So if no,
the only thing I'll say, maybe this is to your point, Reverend Nikolov, if we have a designated night on which the committees are meeting, there can't be overlap between the 2 groups. Otherwise, it would be hard for people to sit in on both. That would be the one thing, I think.
also, to be honest, we should share the work.
Yeah. I know there's only a couple of us, so I completely understand. So is there, I think the rest of you folks are on the education committee, so I can approach those that are not on.
And I will be willing to do the rules committee as well. We just have to figure out a night that we can do all these committees.
I know it. All right. Okay. And anyone else? Okay. Yes.
Can
Go
we
ahead.
make it a part of the minutes to list the people that are on the various committees?
Yep. I have those right here. Give me a second. Let me just pull that up. All right. Just a second. I had it up, and of course, this email. Let me get that information. It's not on my desk. Give me just a second.
As you speak, Chair Wilson, as you look, so there, I think that once we get the people sorted into committees, another step would be to talk about when people would meet. And I think that Chair Wilson wanted to speak about board meetings turning into alternating weeks from here on out. So, I think that my imagination is that we may not meet next Thursday because of Thanksgiving, but starting after that, we get on a regular schedule of having every other week board meetings, and then the in between weeks being committee meetings. And you could use Thursday nights for the people who could only meet on Thursday nights to have their committee meetings then. And that would just be.
Wait, I thought the alternate Thursdays were educational meetings.
Yeah. So to the extent that people had Thursday meetings, the educational sessions were only an hour, or only part of the time or whatever, that was just one way to ensure that people who only had Thursday nights open able to serve on committees. And I'm not saying that's the way it had to be. I think that was just a proposal that was in the agenda.
And I wonder too if we, I know that we're trying to fit everything into a Thursday because a lot of people have made Thursdays available. I wonder if we can just start working on a schedule, and I can start working on it tomorrow as far as like educational issues, things that we need to start listening to, and then just make it into a schedule and then work work the rules and work these committees around that Thursday schedule, like the off days. Does that make sense? No? Yes, no, maybe so? So if we have a schedule that we're working on education and we're having educational topics on the days that we're not having those, we can kind of fold in rule committee and other committees that we're working on.
I saw a shaking head from Danielle, so I didn't.
No? Danielle? No. Does that mean yes? I can't tell.
Uh-oh.
What does that mean?
Chat to us.
Yeah, you'll have to for that. Like, I don't know how else you're going to talk to us. Okay, we'll wait. Well, we'll move on and we'll wait for her. So the committees are as it stands. We had education was Danielle, Bob, Jora, and Cecilia. And we did have, at one point, we were working on an executive committee. And it was Ida, Celia, Danielle, and Reverend Harvey. However, I think because of the rules needing to be done relatively soon, that I think that can be moved for the time being. So I just want to talk to Danielle. That doesn't make sense to me. What didn't make sense? What I said? Okay. Do you want me to say what I said again? Okay. So what I said was about the Thursdays. Okay. I'm really good at this. So basically, every Thursday we're meeting pretty much, right? And we were meeting every other Thursday for a while, but we decided because we have so much work to do. Building up Sundays. You have all fine. So if we're meeting every Thursday, we're going to take some education days and some like that education that we already know that we need, fold those into some of the off Thursdays, and then we can add some of the committee meetings into some of those Thursdays. Like we can't do education every other Thursday that we have off because it seems like we don't have the time for that. So I was going to say instead we could just add in some Thursdays for education and then add committees on some of the other Thursdays where we're not here in meetings.
I think. Okay, sorry.
Rabbi?
Okay, so it seems to me that we have to, I guess I think that I'm feeling completely, I don't want to say overwhelmed, but aware of how much education we need to be doing right now. And I guess what I'd rather sort of do it the other way around, which is some way maybe the education committee can do it, maybe Connor can outline some of it, but to make a decision about what we need to be learning and then see how much time it's going to take. And whether there are ways to also share it somehow or something. Maybe not all of us have to do all of it. And those who have time and energy to do some more can do it in a way that helps other people, in terms of summarizing or resources or something. But I don't think we can, I don't think once a month, which is basically what that would end up being, is nearly enough time right now for what we need to be doing that way.
Open to suggestions.
I'm fine with either way of what we decide. We just have to be real intentional about what we're doing and how much time is going to be allotted to it and have agendas for it. And can Danielle call in on her phone? Is that an option? Is there a call-in number or no?
I'm going to email Danielle a call-in number in case she doesn't have.
She says yes.
Any other thoughts on that? So we have to figure out, the reason why we chose Thursdays was because that was the day that everyone had set aside. So we were only so many Thursdays in a month. So if there are any other additional suggestions.
And what's the turnaround time on the rules? Like, when do you need them by? What's the deadline for the rules? We need them before we go into our process for January, or what's the timeline?
So the rules committee would be doing work over the long haul, and we'd be prioritizing the set of rules that we have to get done, you know, by December, then by January. I think an initial set of rules is revising the initial rules and regulations, and also having a bunch of internal procedures for information distribution, how board meetings are run, when people, when people speak to the media, all of those kind of internal procedures definitely need to get set up first. And then, the anti-bias rules, like we talked about, it would kind of be, what was the word from last time? Sequencing the rules correctly is how we're going to do this, as opposed to biting off everything at once.
Just for clarification, I'm sorry that I was late. What was the question? I kind of have a feel of what it is, but just to be sure.
We were just talking about the start of the conversation was setting up the rules committee and the education committee, making sure we knew who was on what committee, what the committees were going to be responsible for doing, and then when those committees will be meeting moving forward.
Yeah, we had to do some rearranging because we needed one committee we needed to have done relatively soon. And so I know that the executive committee that we were trying to start, that it was yourself, it was Dr. McIntosh, it was Danielle and Reverend Harvey. And I'm asking that those that were serving on the executive committee able to serve on the rules committee. However, Rabbi Settle, Dr. McIntosh, and I'm looking for a couple of other folks for that can volunteer. Reverend Nikolov said he can as well, and that makes. And so we're just need, I would say, maybe one or two other people.
I know that we have the various committees that we're looking to form, but I think, because the rule one is a priority, are there any others that are priority? And maybe we can tackle it that way, right? Because there might be some committees that can wait for later. So can we prioritize which committees need to be formed now to be worked on?
So because of the rules committee needing to be done relatively soon, I think that should, I just offer my opinion, which is I think that should be probably the first priority, along with education. Trying to figure out what our education should look like will take some time to actually set that up. Mm-hmm. But now, since we have Connor, I'm hoping that will be helpful to us. And then also, we talked about, the law. We have a huge responsibility for community engagement, right? And so I think that that's also something we have to look into. How, remember, it's just us, and so we're all serving on all these different committees together, but really kind of at the same time. So I think that should go in order. But again, that's just my opinion. So I will go ahead and open it up to the group if they have any opinions on that.
Yeah. So
Madam Chair.
Oh.
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Go ahead, Bob.
It occurs to me that there's a certain amount of artificiality about what we're trying to do. We're a 9-member board. 9 members is about the size of an average committee. Maybe we don't need to split into committees. Maybe we simply need our focus on alternate days. In other words, perhaps next Thursday we can get together and meet on rules, and the alternate Thursday after that discuss the education plans. It's just 9 of us.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to comment, is there an opportunity, maybe Connor can answer this better, but is there an opportunity that as we are on these committees doing what we need to do, is there some education tied to it, right? So we're creating and learning at the same time.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think that might be Danielle calling in for the audio. To your question, I think that I agree with what Rabbi Settle said earlier, which is there's an overwhelming amount of education that needs to happen. And we're going to have to get that in however we can. And the real limitation, I think, is people's time. Your all time as board members and my time as the one staff member at this moment. So I think, of course, education can be woven into that throughout. What I will say is the more educational work I'm doing, the less work I'm able to do on some other things. It does take some prep to do the educational work. The only other thing I'll say is that there are, this board can create as many committees as it needs to. The law requires it to have, probably 3 committees. There's that executive search committee, but that's to find an executive director, and you already have one. The second is a rules committee, and the third is a public engagement committee. It doesn't say what the size of the committees have to be. We have to have those by law. Is the rules and the education. So it makes sense to tackle those first 2 as well. But it doesn't say what size those committees have to be, when they have to meet, anything like that. So this alternative proposal of, just focusing regularly could also work. But the one thing I will say is that, it will, if you have those full committees, you might not be able to do something like have committees meeting simultaneously at the same time, doing theoretically more work. So
I have a question. Sorry.
But just as a quick note, piggybacking off of that, your committees are also subject to the open meetings law. They are technically public bodies. So if you have simultaneous meetings, they're still going to need to be live streamed.
Yes.
Can you do that? You have capacity for more than one meeting at a time.
I believe so.
The Zoom doesn't. The Zoom account I have for my synagogue doesn't do that.
We could make it work logistically. It would be a little. Again, it would be easier with multiple staff, but we could make it work. We'd figure something out. Whether it's BJ streaming on one and us on the other, we could work it out.
So the question I have is I'm sorry, I could look at the bylaws, but I don't remember. Do our committees have to be exclusively members of the board?
Your standing committees do. So
Okay.
if these are standing committees that you're establishing, then they are board member only, and a board member has to chair them. The same, I believe, goes for the ad hoc committees, but your advisory committees can have non-board members.
Okay.
Any other, so Dr. Harrison, now that you've heard that, does that change your mind, add something, leave it the same?
I'm impressed with the brilliance of my suggestion.
Oh, all right.
I made Eda smile.
Well,
I guess I had the opposite inclination, which is to say, okay, if there are 8 of us, basically not 9 yet, and we need a minimum of 2, but probably 3 committees, let's just say 3, 3, and 2 have to be those committees or something, instead of everybody, being used, because we've got to get this done. I just don't see how we're going to move fast enough if we, have a committee of the whole for everything.
Any other thoughts? I could go. Honestly, I'm fine with either way. I think that, Dr. Harrison has a point that, there's only a couple of us, that if we do one committee per week, that saves on Zooms and that saves on time. But again, it's like, education committee is going to it's a huge undertaking, because we're still trying to figure out what we need to know, what we don't need to know. And, a lot of us will have to work on that on the back end, as far as like, you know, and I know that one of the things we talked about when we initially started this board was having a time we could set aside to actually do some planning, strategic planning about the future. So that's another thing as well that, you know, also takes education committee, or education was a big part of that. So, so I could do either. That could work either way for me. So I'll honestly leave it up to you all.
Do you want to vote on Bob's proposal?
And just a quick suggestion along the lines of voting, or sorry, just a quick point here. According to your bylaws, committees are established by a vote of a majority of the board. So you need all 6 of you currently present to agree.
You mean just 5 of us?
It's affirmative vote of a majority. It's not a quorum. I believe there are 6 of you. I think Danielle's on the phone.
But a majority, but 5 is still a majority, even if we had 9.
All right, well, we get, true, 5 then.
And we also have the executive
we'll be late.
director committee that we have to do.
Yeah.
So
that wasn't mentioned, but
that committee can be formed, but I'm not sure it would have any work to do right now because it's just the search committee.
No. It's the, what in my, either the personnel or liaison committee, however you want to see it.
Oh, I was just talking about the committee that's I thought was required by law. You can have an executive director supervision and whatever, and other things committee too.
Wait, so Stephanie, if you in the bylaws, do the bylaws say ad hoc committees also have to be solely board members?
Yes, they make clear, only board members for ad hoc committees and standing committees. Your advisory committees are the only ones that can include non-members.
Okay, but to be honest, an education committee could include an advisory committee very easily, right? We already have some ideas of people we would want involved in that for us, so it's a thought.
That might also make it easier for you to facilitate sessions with local experts that you were looking to in any case as well, if they were members of your committee.
By the way, it occurs to me that we don't have to create an education curriculum out of whole cloth. There are some locations that are just a wee bit ahead of us and might be useful to use as advisors. For instance, Oakland probably already has a curriculum already done because they've been in business for a little while.
I think the chief thing for us should be scheduling a meeting, an informational session between the Oakland board and this board.
So I've reached out to the Oakland, the person in charge of the Oakland Police Accountability Board. I'm just waiting to hear back from them.
Now, somebody from Oakland came to Rochester and gave a talk when the PAB was still in its formative years. Does anyone remember who that was? I know it was a him, and it was from Oakland.
I don't, but I can reach out to the PABA and see if they have a name for me.
Okay.
But I reached out to I think her name is Regina. That's who the person in charge. Yeah. So I reached out to her, and we've just been trying to figure out a time to meet. So, but I'll let you know when that happens, or at least when that's scheduled. But it's been a schedule issue. All right, so we necessarily haven't really gotten anywhere with what we're doing committee-wise. So, so can I just ask, the executive director talked about having a vote. Should we have a vote on this issue? And if somebody wants to put that vote forward, I'll just ask if that would be something somebody would like to do.
Madam Chair, I move that we form committees consisting of the entirety of the PAB to perform the duties of rulemaking and to develop an educational curriculum. Come on, Eda.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Actually, I'll second that.
All right, all in favor of Bob's motion? I'm not going to say it all, but
We don't know what Danielle is voting.
is Danielle's audio working?
She's on mute.
No, I can't move that.
You can't unmute her?
I'm not the host.
I asked her to unmute,
Okay.
but I can't force her to unmute.
Oh, really?
I don't have that power.
Oh.
So how many votes in favor was that?
1, 2,
Four.
3, 4.
So for what it's worth, I do think that wins it. And let me just explain why. I know the bylaws say some things about voting. The city charter, section 18-6B, says board action shall be decided by a simple majority of board members present. So that rule would apply to all board action, including votes like this one. And I don't think the bylaws can overrule the city charter. So I think that this won the vote.
Stephanie?
I see Connor's point, but you all voted in support of your bylaws and to adopt them.
Well, but if they're
So,
in conflict, we need to regularize them. Not that,
right, there's a question then as to which holds for this board. I would have to review both provisions before I could make a determination.
Okay. Well, I'm just putting it out. I just don't know how the board could overrule what city council passed.
All right, so we're waiting.
Point.
Madam Chair, perhaps we can table this
Yes, that's
until Nikolov shows back up and
so he should be-
Danielle figures out how to communicate.
So that, do we need to take a vote on tabling? We do.
Yes.
Yes, so all in favor of tabling the vote until Reverend Nikolov can come back at about 7:30 and Danielle's audio can be fixed, whatever comes first. Okay? All right, so that's
I was still,
Or
that's 4.
you didn't like that, drawer?
I think it's a disaster, to be honest, because I don't, committees of, I mean, anyway, I just think we have so much to do, and to try to everybody do it all together all the time means it's going to be so much slower. And anyway, just saying, I think if we had basically committees of 3 or 2, that would let us have 3 committees that would start right now and they could get going and whatever. So.
Okay. So, well, the motion is tabled. So if you like to make another motion or anything else that is you're still welcome.
Well,
to
we have to vote on Bob's first, and then we can.
Right, so we're
Well,
voting on that.
there were only 4 votes to table.
so can I comment something?
Sure.
My only issue with making smaller committees is that for the same reason, right, that we're having this discussion, that people are really busy.
Yeah.
If you make a committee of 2 to 3 people, and then that person cannot comply or makes it difficult to participate. And we've seen this, we've seen it within our 9, that we have absences and things of that nature. Myself today, I was almost an hour late. So that's my only issue with making them smaller, because then you might get stuck with someone that won't show up, and then to me, that's also delaying. To me, it's just delaying it just as much as if we were all working on it together. So that's my only concern with not.
Yeah, and I guess the other option is to say, if it's 2 or 3 people, they can figure out a convenient time to meet, maybe more easily than everybody doing everything. But we'll see. Either way, we'll see how it works.
Yeah, I mean, it's those.
I'll be supportive if I'm in the minority. I'm not gonna, but that's how I feel about it.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna leave that discussion until we have Reverend Nikolov and Danielle. I think that's Danielle right now, but we'll wait for her audio to be figured out. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the next thing.
She should be able to chat by phone.
Who?
Danielle.
So
She can
I
chat
think
on
we're
her
waiting.
phone.
But Danielle, are you there? Nope. Okay. So we're gonna while she's figuring out her audio, Connor, did you want to do your executive director report while we're waiting to figure that out?
Sure. So, briefly, last time.
I'm here now.
Oh,
Oh, hello. Good. Okay.
Hello?
Hi.
Yeah. Hi.
Okay. So we've been talking about the committee structure, and we're trying to figure out which one works best for everyone. I mean, Bob put a motion on the floor to have all of us serving on one committee at a time instead of it breaking up into 2 to 3 groups, which is what Rabbi Settle would like. So we're going to take a vote. We can go ahead and redo that. Do we have enough folks now? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. Yes. So Danielle, are there any questions you would like to ask before we do that?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so I understand what you guys are saying. So the question I ask is, would us splitting up into different committees, like 3 or 4 committees, would that be more effective? Is time effective? Because I know we have a lot to do in a certain amount of time. And what are the benefits of us all serving on one committee?
So those
Can you
folks
guys
who
hear me?
put motions out, yeah, they need to be able to, since Danielle wasn't here, can you please answer those questions for her?
The only benefit, I think, from a group standpoint, what I'm hearing, the convenience of the time, everybody's available on Thursday, you're already set for a meeting, getting it done on that time schedule. That's really kind of what I'm thinking the benefit would be.
The thing, Danielle, that occurred to me was that 9 is not an unusual number for a committee. In other words, the PAB itself, with only 9 members, is really a small body, and I question the need to separate into different parts. By the way, I guess this isn't a terrible time to bring this up, but it seems to me in the last few weeks we've had some instances where there has been communication within the PAB with some members, but not the rest, and it in my opinion, has the potential for producing awkwardness where some people in the PAB know what's going on and others don't. So again, that would be a good reason to stay together as a committee of the whole.
Danielle, for me, my concern was that if we break into smaller groups, and we've experienced this already where some people may be missing, or come super late and things of that nature. And if you have a committee of 1 or 2 people, 2 or 3 people, then you're going to be stuck, with even a smaller group. So that was my concern with us breaking into either 3 or 2 groups of 3 or 2.
Danielle, do you have any other questions for folks? I don't know.
you're on mute, by the way, Danielle.
Danielle? Nope, I don't know if she's there. Oh, there you are. Okay.
I'm unmuted.
Yes.
Do you have any other questions for folks regarding those 2 things we just spoke of?
Okay, guys. So,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was pressing *6 to unmute when I should have been pressing *9. My apology. Okay, I definitely understand now. So if I were to vote, I would vote for all of us to meet on one day. I think that's better. That's my vote.
Okay, so vote is still, vote has been tabled, but we can put the vote back on the floor and then vote. Okay. So I think the vote is still, so the vote is still on the floor. So I don't think we need to second or anything like that. I think we can just take our vote. All right, go ahead, Bob. Yep. Okay. Danielle, you're voting yes? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so motion carries.
So technically, you do have to take the rest of the vote.
What do you mean?
Nay,
All
nay.
those in favor, all those opposed, all those abstaining.
Thank you. So Rabbi, yes.
Okay, so I'm voting against. but-
Okay, and then Matthew is abstaining because he's not here. Thank you, and also Reverend Harvey as well. Thank you.
Well, no, they're just not
But they're
here.
not
So it's
abstaining, they're
just-
just not here.
Yeah, they're just not here, so you don't count them. So it's just 5-1.
Thank you. Okay, so we were gonna go ahead and now that we have decided that we're gonna move as a group to work on these committees, we can go ahead now and move on to the executive director's report.
Okay, I'll keep this very quick. So, as I've said in some of my emails, my focus in the last few days has been, the language access, figuring out what the city's capacities are. The things that I learned are this: there's a small contract, probably a professional services agreement out of the communications department to do very small, single shot translation of documents. And so they've been very generous in getting the form that has the questions that people would answer through our testimonial process that translated. That should be done by tomorrow into Spanish. And then I spoke with people at the state level and in the purchasing department to figure out what the contracting situation was for other language translation services. So the city has this ASL translation contract, but no other city level contract for language provision. Nevertheless, there is a state level contract through New York State. I emailed the details about that contract around that allow any political subdivision of the state, including cities like Rochester or departments within that city, things like the PAB, to put out a request to get language access services with a limited number of approved providers that have been awarded a contract. And so I talked to people at the state about how people would do that. I confirmed with the purchasing department about how to get that done, wrote it out in an email, got the go ahead from purchasing, then walked through with purchasing how to do a requisition order to actually get this done. And then finally sent out that request for quote to all the providers, gave them a deadline of this Friday to get back to us. I have already received one quote. The quote is for 63 cents per minute for language translation over the phone, as well as text translation of documents in, I think, about 100 different languages, including Spanish at 13 cents a word. They have offered to provide for us. I'm going to wait till tomorrow to hear if we have any other quotes, see what the different values are, and then do a requisition order tomorrow to take one of these folks. And the proposal that I sent out said they have to be ready by Monday to provide on-demand phone translation services and text translation services so that any answers we get, we can translate into English. And if anyone wants to testify in a language that is different than English or Spanish, they can call in to the PAB number at a scheduled time. And they would be able to work with me and an interpreter to have the questions asked in the appropriate language, and then their responses be translated back into English. I would transcribe, and we would move forward that way. Given our discussion at the last meeting, obviously these are not the services we need for the long run, which will be remote translation, in-person translation services, all this. But it does look like we're able to obtain the language access services we need for this limited public engagement. And so in line with the vote prior, I moved forward, emailing out the testimonial forms to different folks. I also want to say that this contract, these providers can provide in-person interpretation and remote interpretation, so they can, pop into a meeting and do live interpretation there. I'm going to be speaking to these vendors tomorrow to learn more about the details of how they do this with other cities across the state. But that's where we're at with the language access stuff. My apologies. It did take a few days of phone calls and getting people to speak to get it figured out. But I think we're in the place where I think at least we wanted to be for this work over the coming weeks.
Madam Chair.
Unless my math is wrong, the document translation is $32.50 a page.
So I don't know what the word per page is.
Usually it's $2.50, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. So it is, if you look on it a per day. So for example, the form that we sent out was about 213 words, and at 13 cents per word rate, it comes out to something like $35 or something for just that form. But I'm not an expert in translation services. I don't know what comparable rates are. But certainly we have $100,000 in our professional services budget. It's that specifically to provide language access and that kind of thing. So yes, I all that's to say is I think you're right in terms of the per page document translation. And now all that's to say is that, that's why telephone, people calling into me and then having me write out stuff could be in some instances a quicker and maybe even cost-effective way to do some of this. But because I have to talk through the details with the providers to figure out what actually works, I'm not sure.
Just having done some translation work myself, it shouldn't, unless we're not doing literary translation here, right? So like you're thinking like you should be easily able to do a couple pages an hour at least, which then you're paying someone $65 an hour, which seems like an awful lot of money. But maybe I'm just not in touch. I don't begrudge people money, right? But I also am just curious about how that calculation works. So
I just learned this today, but the other resource that Connor is the school district.
I'm sorry.
Name, please explain further. Can you?
They apparently do because they have students with the different languages that are present in Rochester. They have translators.
Are they effective?
Well, yeah. No.
I have no idea.
So Ida, can you kind of give a little bit of background, because I wonder if you might have some more information that we're missing.
When it comes to certain literature, they do, but not necessarily, people and talking and things like that. They don't. They do the same thing that everybody else. They rely on so-and-so that speaks Spanish and come over here and translate.
So I know for in medicine, like in our clinics, we have peers that come in with certain organizations. If I have if somebody needs to see me in the office, they will bring a translator with them. That is a peer-to-peer translator. I know that for the refugee families as well, that they will have a peer translator to come with them to certain visits. I'm not sure if that makes a difference. But I do know that they're usually local, and obviously they have to come with them. They come with them to appointments. So I wonder if that's something we can look into as well, since that's something that's local and actually feeding back into the community that we're trying to serve.
I will just say that all the vendors are non-local. Most are based in New York City. And just to echo that point is we haven't used these services before. I mean, these are generally national providers. And part of the advantage is that they can provide language access in Swahili, a bunch of other languages that I know are important here too. But, like I said in my email, I'm not sure if this is the long-term or even medium-term solution for us, but it does show that we have real options for paying people to do this rather than relying on volunteers or anything else. And just to the cost question, like I did some research into the cost on this, and to have quality translators who can do this, it does cost some money, but it's a service and it's a professional service. And so if we want good stuff, I suppose we do have to pay for it. And I just wanted to just put out that, and are there any concerns with what I've found or any of this or anything else that I should know when I'm talking to these vendors? Anything might be useful from folks.
I'm not trying to start any trouble, but it just occurs to me that we might be criticized sending money to New York if there's any chance that the money could be used here in Rochester.
Yep, I'm going to say the same thing.
And what I will say is that when I talk to procurement, purchasing, I asked, despite this state contract that's there, can we go out and request, language access services that are local? And there was a yes, we can do that. I just think the one constraint, obviously, is to do that, you have to go through, I think, a longer process.
Oh, I'm sure it's a big pain in the patookie.
Well, but if to pay local people, the people who are here to do it, it's probably worth it. It's just a process that we would have to start now, and we wouldn't get the services probably for months, 2 months.
Agree.
Yeah. Additional, just to piggyback off that, here and already connected to the community, because they're often doing the translation anyway.
Yep.
Right.
Especially organizations like Ibero.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, our only issue is that if you're looking for multiple languages, we wouldn't be able to help you there, but we definitely can help you with the Spanish language. One of my concerns with the Spanish language is to ensure that that it's feasible for the communities that we serve. Because sometimes things are translated, but they're like Spanish from Spain and other places that it's not necessarily understandable for a lot of the people in the community. So just something to think about as well.
So, and I wonder too, we do have people that are working on language access services for the refugee population. They are people that are their peers that are doing this work. And I wonder if it's just a phone call that one of us can make, or I can make, to refugee services at the not the University of Rochester. I know Rochester General was doing it for a while. And I know that Catholic Family Center was doing it as well. But I think that these are services that are actually that Catholic Family Center, RGH, has access to, but they're not necessarily a program of. So I think it's just a matter of figuring out who is actually doing the services, and then engaging those folks and saying, hey, look, we would like you to join us in these issues. So the access exists. We just have to figure out how to get there.
And it may mean that you have, 2, 3 smaller contracts versus one big one, but then those 3 can service the communities that we need to be contacting and being engaged with.
So I can work on that tomorrow, because I know that there are multiple clinics in town that use these services. So, and I've happened to work at 3 of them. So I'll figure out how to get in touch. If it's possible, then I'll let you know as soon as possible. I know that there are, a lot of the folks that they employ are they are people that are actually I actually thought I had a really wonderful experience with a lot of their translators, because they understand what the patient is trying to say, and they're also been trained in how to not, how they will. Well, a lot of times what they'll do is we'll say, please don't give me the slang expression of what they're saying. Tell me exactly what they're saying. So it's like, so they're trained in actually how to do that, and not just like you talked about having, Spanish from Spain or from Mexico or from such and such, unless that's what they need. So I can look into that tomorrow.
The last thing I'll just say on this before we go, because I know people want to do the educational session in the time we have, is just that the contract that I put out for quotes was specifically small scale, long scope so that if we don't use the services now, we can use them over the long run, but we aren't expending a ton of money on this, so that we actually still, the focus is on getting the contracts that we need locally. So that's the last thing I just want to say on that.
Thanks for doing all that.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. Thank you.
Had to be done.
Thank you.
All right, so I think we're going to go ahead and move into our open. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Is there something else you wanted to say?
Oh, no, just saying, yeah. And that we can end the meeting because
Yeah.
it's not executive session. Yeah.
Right. So
Go ahead, Jura. You're muted.
I'm sorry. I thought our education sessions were not recorded.
Well, we have to end this meeting first.
Right. Then let me try. Okay. I said, okay.
Before you end the meeting, are we going to discuss the RPD's contract? My understanding is that there's a committee being formed by Mitch Gruber.
That's right. And that's
and it was discussed in the PABA last night that there's something about November 30th being the drop dead date for changes.
So I heard something differently today, but none of it's been confirmed, which is why we haven't discussed it in the meeting. There's still a lot of stuff flying around. I do know that Mitch Gruber does have a committee, but I think it's a committee to work on proposals that'll go from City Council. The email has been sent to make sure that we're a part of that group, but nothing has been confirmed yet. As far as the drop dead date, I think what you're meaning is that in order for, I think what that means is that in order for the union has to say that they're willing, that the changes have to be made by a certain date. Is that correct?
If we don't propose changes by a certain date, then the contract folds over for another year.
So that's not what I heard, and I think that was something that had been posed by a council member that was found to not be the case. So
would Stephanie have any information about that?
Right. And Stephanie, at the same time, I'm going to ask you, my understanding was that negotiations on the contract are under the jurisdiction of the mayor's office and not the purview of the city council.
I believe that's correct. I'm not involved in the negotiation process, but I can talk to the attorney in the law department that is and see if we can get some answers.
Okay.
Only thing I'll say on that, Bob, is that all I heard was that Councilmember Gruber was going to convene a working group.
Yep.
I hadn't heard that he had, or that, but I plan on contacting him and saying what's going on, and the PAB is going to be involved, right? So.
But the note was from Loretta, which lends a certain air of credibility.
I'm sure. And the thing is too, is that it seems to me that if that's the case, the PAB will be at the table. There's just where the wheels aren't in motion yet. So, we're talking about working in conjunction with City Council. I actually wrote an email to Loretta this afternoon asking about some of those things. And, I made a request, hadn't really heard anything yet. So again, if I'm going to report information to all of you, it has to be thorough information and not just hearsay. So, yep.
And Bob, when you say the letter was from President Scott, what letter are you referring to?
Either Connor or Shawnee forwarded a copy of a note.
I see. Okay.
That referred to a committee that Mitch Gruber was forming.
Yeah, it's in the city emails.
No, I hadn't realized it was from President Scott. Sorry. Yeah.
I think we should wait for the sequence, guys.
Yeah, that's also what I'm recommending here.
I agree. All I'll say is that part of the rules committee can be coming up with rules about when information gets shared amongst all of us.
Yeah, and I also too, that letter did not come from me, so I wouldn't want to send you any information until I had an actual well-rounded view as to what was going on, because there would be so many additional questions. So, I will.
Well,
I've sent the information and information requests.
Connor referred just a second ago to the Rules Committee considering when information would be shared amongst us. And that's I have a problem with that.
Okay, so I'm willing to hear that, but I also have an issue with giving you information that is not yet confirmed.
No, what I have an issue with is information being distributed unevenly amongst the PAB. I don't think we're big enough or complicated enough to warrant some people on the PAB receiving information that others do not.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know what to say to that. I know that, the vice chair receives information before you all do because she's the vice chair. But as far as the information that we're talking of specifically regarding President Scott in an email that I sent to her this afternoon, I don't see any problem with how that went down. So,
well, actually, what I'm referring to is Connor's memo.
Yeah, no, I sent the email to Chair Wilson and Vice Chair McIntosh, and I CC'd Bob on it because I know.
And that's a bad habit.
Okay.
I see.
Well, yeah. So I won't do that. But part of the reason that I did that was because I was going to talk about it tonight. And it was yesterday. So
no, that's actually not the memo I'm talking about, Connor. I'm talking about the one that caused all the hell in City Council.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah, I think, Bob, we already agreed about that. I don't think we.
Yeah, we're over that, Bob. We're beyond that.
I'm not on about the memo. I'm on about the process.
Right, and we agreed about that too. We've already discussed that.
I'm not sure we do agree on that since Vice Chair McIntosh is singled out for communications that the rest of us aren't.
Well, no, actually, so I understand your point, but I mean, I would prefer if there's communication coming to the executive team that I be CC'd in before it, instead of being the email being sent after the fact. If there's something that needs to be sent to Shawnee directly, then I've asked that I be CC'd so there doesn't need to be all these different steps. Usually I'm getting the information usually before you guys, like literally maybe, I don't know, 5-15 minutes, maybe half a day, so it's not necessarily that long in advance.
I question the need for an executive team.
Okay, so the Rules Committee.
Would you like to be a part of that Rules Committee, Bob?
We are, he is.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's right.
Well, then we can talk about it in the Rules Committee then, how we would like to make sure that
We all are. We're all part of that committee.
Great. Let's
go
talk about it.
So we'll discuss that.
Yeah.
I'd like to move that we adjourn our meeting.
Can I just interject one last thing? I do think we have to decide when we're meeting next. And if the next meeting will focus on something in particular, like rules and education or something. I think that's just the last thing for my purposes.
Okay. So I have, let me look at that. I thought we have that.
Yeah, we're meeting every week except next week because we're not meeting for Thanksgiving, I thought.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I thought that's what the plan was as well.
Yeah, I want to know if that first meeting we come back, is it going to be a committee meeting or is it going to be some kind of general meeting? I just want to know what to prepare for.
So I would say committee meeting, but I know that there might be some stuff that comes up in the 2 weeks that we aren't here. So I would just pose that to the group as well, that
if there's work to be done, I definitely say we could, and I'll let the group talk, that we can focus on the rules since that seems to be a priority. And if there's time, maybe we can build in time if there's any updates that have happened over the last 2 weeks for a meeting, like a half an hour or something. If
the only other piece of information I wanted to share is that on the 3rd, that is the time frame for us approving the answers that will be sent to the executive order task force. That's the time frame.
So it does sound like we do have some business then. Maybe we can do it the first like half an hour to 45 minutes. This is just a suggestion. We can work that out on the back end and get some emails going if need be. So unless there's any objections, I think that, we can have a meeting. It probably will be likely committee, but we'll probably have some business that we have to vote on, we can tackle, and then we can move right into the committee meeting. And yeah, so I think there's a motion to adjourn the meeting. Okay, so all in favor?
Second.
Oh, okay.
No, you don't even.
I didn't say anything about seconding. That was not me.
My
So-
fault, my fault. Sorry.
So all in favor of ending the meeting tonight? Okay, and I think Danielle?
Aye. Can
Aye.
you hear me?